Finland was recently voted the happiest country on earth. Actually, this is Finland's 8th year in a row being awarded this title. If you speak to Finns in Finland, a lot of people will say they are more content rather than being happy. So here is an outsider's view on why I think Finland is the happiest country. Hey there, if we've never met before, my name is Shirley and I live in Finland with my Finnish husband and our 2 kids. So what are the top things you need to survive? You need water, you need food, you need shelter. Finland has one of the cleanest drinking waters in the world. You can just turn on your tap water, unless you're at a summer cottage and your water is run on a well or whatnot. You might need to be a little bit more careful. But if you live in a city, it is widely known that tap water here is safe to drink and it's actually cleaner than some bottled waters. I saw that on an Instagram post, so don't quote me on that. But anyways, the water here tastes really good and it's really refreshing. Since Finland is part of the European Union, the food quality here is much higher than that of, let's say, the US, where I'm originally from. Or actually, I was born in China, I grew up in the US. I have a whole backstory about me. If you want to know more about it, I'll link the video here and I'll leave it in the description as well. A lot of the harmful ingredients that you'll see in American supermarkets, you are not able to find here in Finland. So one thing that I really like, and our kids also really like to eat, is Skippy's peanut butter. You can find natural peanut butter, which is more lumpy, and the nut and oil separates much easier, so it's like a healthy peanut butter. But you will not be able to find any sugary peanut butter here in Finland. And I know that recently in the US, the government has been trying to ban different types of food dyes and whatnot from the food supply. But here in Europe, the standards for food is much higher. I think it's also safe to say a lot of people in Finland live in apartment buildings. And what surprised me about apartment living in Finland is that there's a lot of mutual respect between the neighbors. For instance, there's not going to be any loud noise past, 9 to 10 p.m. And every time my baby cried in the middle of the night, I will feel bad because I know that the neighbors can probably hear us, but there was almost nothing I could do. So I was always self-conscious, and I still am, about my kids being loud in public. It's not really normal here to be loud and proud out in the open. And I think that's what makes apartment living so tolerable, is because your neighbors are likely friendly and everybody keeps to themselves and tries not to stir any trouble. Although my husband did rent a studio apartment for his office not long ago, and one of his neighbors was a chain smoker, so he had to keep his windows closed at all times. Otherwise, his whole apartment would smell of smoke. But that's a different story, and he is no longer renting that space. I'm not saying apartment living in Finland is perfect, but there is a huge difference between apartment living in the US versus Finland. Now let's talk about mental health. In Finland, there are 2 things that are widely accessible to almost everybody. And if I were to say this in the US, you would think that I have a lot of money. But in Finland, this is very normal and very much part of everyday life. One being sauna, if you're watching from outside of Finland. According to recent stats, there is 1 sauna for every 1.7 persons. In our old apartment, we had a personal sauna in our apartment building, and right now in our row house, we also have a sauna there as well. Most apartment buildings also have saunas in the basement for everybody to share. You would just sign up for it and show up during your allotted time. There are a lot of studies that show sauna is really good for both mental and physical health, and I think that's a huge part of why Finland is such a happy place to live in. Most families in Finland also have access to a summer cabin or a family cottage. Our family, for instance, we have access to our family cabin, and it's shared between 3 or 5 different families. I have a whole tour and video of that, and I'll link it here as well. It is about 2 hours away from us, and we can pretty much go anytime we want. It's not necessarily just a summer cabin, because our cabin has both running water and electricity, so we can really go anytime. Although during the winter months, it takes a very long time to warm up the cabin. But regardless, we do have access to a family cabin in which we can unwind and relax. And that's really, really great for your mental health. All right, in the next section of the video, I am going to be going over the different stages of life and explaining why I think Finland is the happiest country to live in. So starting from the time you were born, a wee little baby, and let's also include mama in here as well. When you are pregnant, not only do you have a generous mat leave after you give birth, you also have something called a pregnancy leave, in which you can take up to 40 days off before your due date. That's just crazy to me, because in the US, some companies only allow you to take 6 weeks off after you give birth. And there's no such thing as a pregnancy leave. Both of our kids were born in the US, and I waited till the absolute last day because I did not want to start my maternity leave 1 day earlier than I needed to. So I pretty much held on and worked from home until I really couldn't anymore and the contractions were coming. That's when I told my boss, hey, look, I'm checking out. I can't work anymore. I'm about to pop out this baby. Because everybody in Finland has universal health care, when you give birth in the hospital, it's pretty much free. I talked to a friend recently and she said she probably paid maybe 200 euros at tops, and she stayed in a hospital for a couple of days. In the US, oh, that's much different. Luckily, when we lived in US, I had health insurance through a corporate company. I had a natural birth and I was not medicated. I stayed in the hospital for 2 nights, I believe. Every insurance is different. There's like different deductibles. I'm not going to go into all that because I really don't understand too much of it myself. You're definitely going to be paying more than $200 if you give birth in the US. I think we ended up paying something like $2,000 out of pocket. Now that the baby has arrived, you will be granted what's called a maternity grant. So you can either receive 170 euros in cash or through your bank, or you can choose to receive something called a baby box. It's this huge cardboard box that has a little bit of foam underneath as well as a cushion cover so that you can actually use the box as a crib. But inside of the box, there are tons of things for your baby. So there's onesies, there's jackets, there's outerwear, there's mittens, there's hats, there's no diapers. You probably have to buy some diapers yourself, but there's also like, I don't know, tweezers and just like little tools you might need for a newborn. And I think they also include condoms in the box as well. Okay, so now you've just given birth, you have your cute little baby at home. Not only do you get an extensive mat leave, I think somebody told me it's upwards of 3 years if you really wanted to not work for 3 years. I don't know if you're paid for all 3 years, but I do know that at least the first year or so, you are pretty much paid a percentage of your salary. If you decide to take care of your baby at home, you also get a small payment every month from the government, and it's pretty much just something to help you out. There's also something called a child benefit. So as long as your child is under the age of 17, you will be paid on a monthly basis, depending on how many children you have. For instance, the first child, I think, is 94-88 euros, and the second one is maybe like 100 or something. So like the more kids you have, like kid number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the amount for each kid goes up just a little bit. Since we have 2 kids under 17, we get about 200 euros a month, and some parents would put this away into a savings account, or they might also put it into a stock account and just keep it for their child, and the moment they turn 17, this money will be theirs. Others will just spend it on their kids, hopefully. But it's just something extra to help you out. When we first moved to Finland about 1.5 years ago, what I found interesting was that because everybody has universal health care, our baby at the time, she was 9 months old when we moved. They requested to have her gums or her teeth checked as soon as possible because they just want to make sure that, everything is growing properly and they don't want to deal with it down the line in case there are issues. They want to catch it early. Versus my first child, who was born in 2020, he probably didn't see a dentist until we arrived in Finland because that's just not really common for you to go see a dentist in the States, like below the age of 3, I think. Of course, you would take them to the pediatrician, but they don't really check their teeth or their gums. All right, now let's say that your baby is a little bit older and you're contemplating whether or not to send the baby to daycare. Because everybody has such a generous mat leave here, I think majority of the people don't really send their babies to daycare until they're at least 1, or actually what's more common is probably 2. And usually that's when parents start thinking about sending their kids to daycare. Speaking of daycare here is subsidized by the government. So depending on how much income you have and whatnot, the cost for daycare will not exceed 200 euros a month, which is just crazy because back in the US, to have both of our kids go to daycare so that my husband and I could work, we spent about $2,300 every month on daycare. A lot of people also don't get charged for daycare at all when they go. It just depends on everybody's situation. But daycare here is very, very affordable because it is subsidized by the government, and you don't ever have to pack food for your kid if you send them to daycare. Most daycares will have a kitchen on site that will cook fresh food for your kids. So the only thing you have to really send are diapers and clothes. And when they're at daycare, they usually go outside 2 times a day, usually once before lunch and then once after a snack in the afternoon. They will go out around 3 p.m. and just stay outside until they get picked up. If the kid is too young, they will have strollers to push them around in. And like I mentioned, most kids don't go to daycare until they're 1 or 2, so they should be walking by then. And the kids just really love being outdoors. Kids here will get dressed up in all different types of clothes to suit the weather. So they have rain overalls, and then they have snow overalls, and then they have rain overalls that go over snow overalls when the weather is like snowy but wet outside. Unless it's absolutely freezing or too slippery, it's almost certain that they go outside every single day that they're in daycare. Because winters here in Finland can be extremely long, it could be as long as 6 months, so that's half of the year. People here really value summertime, and kids are encouraged to take summer vacation in the summertime, even if they're in daycare. That's almost unheard of in the US. Nobody will say, hey, you need to take some time off. Go take some time off and don't come to daycare. daycare. They would never say that because most parents need to work, but they would encourage you to take summer vacation and have your young children also take summer vacation. Everybody just needs some time to relax and sit in the sun, and that includes small children that are in daycare as well. In fact, they almost find it strange if you don't take summer vacation. And we're talking about like a month at a time. And overall, I would say that Finland is a very family and kid-friendly country. There are a lot of different playgrounds outside for everyone to enjoy for free. There are a lot of activities that are also free around town. We also have the museum card, which I think it's somewhere around 90 euros a year. And that gets you into all of museums in Finland, not just like 1 or 2 or 10. And because our kids are still young, a lot of the museums don't charge for kids. So my husband and I would have a museum card and we would just take our kids along with us. Since moving to Finland with our family of 4, it just feels like there's always something to do, and I'm really, really happy about that. All right, now we're going to move on to the next life stage, which is school years. So the baby has grown up and now he looks like this. Now, I don't have too much to say in this category because our kids are not yet school aged, but I will just list a few from what I can observe. The first one being that kids have a lot of freedom here in Finland. Preschool starts at 6, school starts at 7. There are 7-year-olds walking by themselves, biking by themselves, scootering by themselves on the side of the road, just on their own because they're old enough. I think back in the US this was really common in the 80s, but it's really not common now. So the first time I saw kids on their own, like just by themselves out and about, I just found it really strange and wondered where their parents were. But that's just what people do. People give their children a lot of freedom to go to school and come home and go hang out with their friends. And some school-age children are very small or on the like shorter side. It just looks like somebody that's my son's age, which he's almost 5, walking by himself, like going to places. It still baffles me sometimes, and I still have to like turn my head to make sure the kids are okay. But kids have a lot of freedom here in Finland. And everything that I mentioned in the previous category for babies and small kids for daycare also applies to school-age kids. So they will be outside numerous times a day and they will get a free lunch that is very healthy, and I hope it's tasty. I've never tasted it. But yeah, they get fresh lunch served to them every day for free. Education here in Finland is free, which also includes universities as well. And when you're going to university, it just feels like there's a lot of social events around the university that tries to form some type of community with the students. But when you're in university, you have the option of purchasing overalls. They're not farmers' overalls. I feel like I have to mention this in every video, but they're like overalls that cover your entire body. They're like onesies, I guess you can call them, onesies for adults. Depending on your major, your overalls will be a different color, and there are a ton of different events that students can go to throughout the year, and you get patches that you put onto your overalls to show people how many events you've been to. But that's just something that I thought was cool and that I wish we had in our school when I went to college or university. I guess we have sororities, but that's a little bit different. Anyways, all right, so now the kid has grown up. Now we are on to our work years. There's a really wonderful work-life balance here. It's very normal to get off work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Back at my corporate job, leaving before 5 o'clock was like unheard of. Clocking out at 5 o'clock on the dot was considered early. I often worked until 6 o'clock in the evening, and then when I get home, I would still have my laptop and continue working. So I don't think that's really a big thing here, or at least I hope not. You would start to see traffic on the road starting at 4 o'clock. When I say traffic, it's really just like congestion for 2-3 blocks. Once you're out of the city center, you're pretty much good. I spoke about summer vacation earlier for the kids in daycare. Summer vacation also is mandatory for everybody that works in Finland. I want to say they get 4 weeks of vacation and they have to take some of it in the summer or something. From what I heard from our family and friends, it's mandatory for you to take vacation during the summertime. That's really cool as a country. Finland, you're doing that right. All right, maybe this is better. The sun was kind of shining in my face. But as an adult, there is also a lot of free or low cost things for you to do to stay active. No matter where you live, it's really easy to find nature like this out here everywhere you go. So I see a lot of people using walking poles, walking their dogs, walking their babies in strollers, just enjoying the outdoors. I think that's just something that everybody is acclimated to here in Finland. And they also have a ton of biking trails, running trails, and cross-country trails and stuff like that for you to stay active, for you to get outside, for you to just enjoy nature without having to pay a lot of money. For instance, during the winter months in our town, there's a park called Kupita, and there's a free ice skating rink. It's not really a rink, it's like a loop, and it's just like people can just bring their own skates and you can skate there for free. There's free outdoor gyms where like like you can just use your own body weight to work out. And I feel like I'm forgetting a lot of things, but there's just like a lot of things to do outside that's free. I forgot to mention this in the earlier category, but there are a lot of free events also for kids. For instance, in our town on Sundays, there's an indoor sports arena that would host kids for free every Sunday for like 3 or 4 hours. And they would just put out everything they have in their gym and just let whoever wants to come in and play for free. All right, now we are going to move on to retirement. So, oh, was I holding up the wrong? I don't know, I'm getting too cold. All right, now we are going to move on to retirement. I believe most Finns in Finland, when you're retired and you've been working all your life, you will receive a pension every month. I think that's somewhere around 1,000 euros, maybe a little bit less. I think it was like 900 euros. That's still very much a thing here in Finland. When you retire, you get a monthly pension. As we age, of course, our bodies start to slow down and you want to make sure that you have healthcare. So universal healthcare is really a blessing. Of course, it's also important to have different hobbies and also friends you can hang out with once you're retired. My mother-in-law, for instance, likes to knit, and she also has a large group of friends that she travels with all the time. That could be from going to somebody's summer cabin or just going on a trip all together as a group of friends. My father-in-law, for instance, loves sailing, and whenever he's not sailing during the colder months, he is working on a project that's very much related to sailing. So it's very important to find a hobby once you're retired. Traveling in Finland is very easy because it's extremely convenient to go to different European countries because everybody here holds an European Union passport, which gets you to all of the countries within Europe. Or you can even get on a ferry to travel to Sweden or Estonia. I have a video about our family trip on the Viking Line Grace here. If you're interested, I'll leave it up there for you to check out. But yeah, traveling within Europe is really easy because it's close by. Now, if you are married and have kids, by now you probably also have grandkids. They will also keep you busy as well. And everything that I mentioned before the retirement stage, also applies to your entire family because it affects everyone's well-being. And I looked this up real quick before I started filming this video. Finns have a pretty long lifespan. The average lifespan here is 82 years versus the US is currently sitting at 77. All right, I am ready to go home because I don't have enough clothes on and it's too cold. It's getting windy. So those are the reasons why I think Finland is the happiest country to live in. I'm sure I missed a ton of things. So if you are Finn watching this, please share with everybody why you think Finland is the happiest country to live in. If you want to follow along and learn more about Finland and what my life is like in Finland, please consider subscribing to this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next one. Moi moi!